Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. In this first part of a three-part series, I chat with comic book creators on the topic of AI, artificial intelligence. 2023 turned out to be the year of AI. Although it's been lurking in the background with names like machine learning and algorithmic computer science, 2023 was the year that AI became the big thing. To each creator I pose this question: is AI helpful or harmful to comic book creation? And boy, did these comic book creators have something to say. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. So, without further ado, here's the first in a three-part series with comic book creators answering the question: is AI helpful or harmful to comic book creation? Scott Chantler is a cartoonist of the critically acclaimed graphic novels Bix and Two Generals, which was nominated for 2 Eisner Awards, selected for Best American Comics 2012, and voted by CBC Canada's Reads as one of the 40 best Canadian nonfiction books of all time. His other work includes Northwest Passage, nominated for Eisner and Harvey Awards, and the Three Thieves series, winner of the Joe Shuster Award for Best Comic for Kids, and listed by YALSA as a great graphic novel for teens. His latest project is a Squire Knight series of all-ages fantasy adventure graphic novels for First Second publishers.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch this all unfold, really just in the last 7 or 8 months. Things have really been happening with that. And I swear every second article that my news feed on my phone is pushing at me has something to do with AI. If nothing else, it's been a great boon for journalistic think pieces about AI.
True. Yeah.
It's boom time for those guys.
Right.
When I don't use it in my work at all, and I don't expect I would.
Okay.
The technology is certainly interesting. It's kind of amazing what it can do. I have a lot of reservations about its use for art, and I'm putting quotes around the word art here because I really feel like there to be art, there has to be an artist.
Yes.
Art is interesting because of choices that an artist made, and with AI images, there's no choices because there is no artists.
Right.
People have been arguing for centuries whether art is about technique or whether it's about self-expression. AI images are neither. there's nothing being expressed and no technique to speak of. It's just averaging out all the art that other people have made for a million years. And of course that's where you get into kind of the ethical and legal ramifications of it.
Exactly.
Because it could be the most interesting software in the world and be a really useful tool. But the fact that this software has been trained using, images that are, under copyright by living artists, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem.
Right.
Training a computer with artists' work, and then making those artists compete in the marketplace against that computer is the exact kind of thing that we have copyright laws for.
Exactly.
And as usual, the law is behind the technology, but I expect it's going to catch up pretty quickly.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I know that there's an article out right now about Sarah Silverman.
I saw that today. Yeah.
So see how that turns out. I mean, she's got some case there. Some people would say you're full of it because, Sarah, how did you get started? You looked at other people's performances too to inspire you. So
Anyway, we'll see what the court's decided.
Yeah.
It's very intriguing, and I didn't mean to derail our conversation, but wanted to get your thoughts.
That's okay. I mean, this is what a lot of artists are thinking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And and in your, like in the example you just gave, like Sarah Silverman is a person, and being inspired by other people's work is something we all do, but that's quite different from just appropriating it and mixing it up with a bunch of other people's work and then coughing it back out again. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different thing.
Glen Carabin is a comic book creator working out of Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia. After writing a story inspired by the neighboring city of Dartmouth, but unable to find an artist to illustrate his book, Glen got creative and through employing a Canon Rebel T2i, Adobe Photoshop Elements, and Illustrator on a Mac Mini, with Blambot fonts created by award-winning comic book letterer and graphic designer Nick Picos, he developed a unique comic art style that resulted in the creation of Dartmouth, a supernatural superhero thriller.
That is a great question. I'll tell you my honest feeling. I was fearful that my art would be mistaken for AI because I am not a traditional illustrator. I don't use pencils. I use photographs and I trace my models in Photoshop and then I export it to Illustrator and do some work through Illustrator. So I was fearful that my art would be mistaken for AI, just because it looks a little bit different, I think, than regular comic book art. So that was my initial reaction to it. I haven't had any issues with people saying your art is AI, you shouldn't be selling it here. So I think I kind of cleared that hurdle. So that was my initial kind of response when AI became a big deal. I thought about, I thought about the good points and the bad points of it, and it's really simple for me. If you have an idea, a story, a great story, and you can't do the art for it, right? You can write your story and as honestly as possible, like write your own story. You could also get AI to write your story too, but let's say you just write your own story and you don't rely on AI to write your story. To kind of put images to your story, AI would be helpful. And maybe people could use that to kind of introduce their story to individuals. You might not want to say it's my comic book or, go too far with it, but it could kind of get your idea across as like a sketch for it and say, so you can like present it to other artists and say, hey, here's my story. AI did the art for it, but I just wanted to see what it would look like. So you could do sequential art with AI. You can, but the other thing is so that was one thing that I thought about it that would be a positive. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. It could help you get a story done, but I wouldn't go too far with it, personally. And then I looked on the other side of it, and if you use AI like to write your story and to do the art for it, it takes away from, I find, your creativity. It takes away from one thing that I love is trusting my process when I do art. And when I say trust your process is that, yeah, you have your idea, but then when you create it yourself, it doesn't necessarily always turn out the way you expected it to. Sometimes it looks a lot different, and that's art, right? And that's real art. And sometimes it even turns out better. Even if you make a mistake, some of your mistakes end up being awesome. Like, and I had this conversation, I believe it was, a medical breakthrough with insulin. I think insulin was used, they were looking for something else, some other kind of medical, some other kind of medicine. And then insulin was kind of discovered along the way of looking for this other kind of medicine. So they were going through the process and this other great thing turned up. And I think that's the same way with art too. When you are doing your own art, you learn things, new, better things get created, things that you would never expect to come out of your art. That happens when you put that effort into yourself. So by doing AI, you're kind of depriving yourself of those potentials. What kind of lies beneath the surface of your art will never come to life if you use AI. But if you do the work yourself, you'll make those mistakes, and you'll learn, you'll correct them, and you'll even see better things that you can use for your next page, right? You if you're doing your own art, trying to do one page, you might make a completely different page, and then you go back to do the page that you were first working on, and by the end of it, you have two. So you learn those things by doing the work yourself. And one final thing on that is when you don't rely on AI and you do the work yourself, there's that sense of satisfaction that you get from putting that hard work in, and you just feel a lot better about your comic book in the end when you know that it's yours. And so that's I like putting the effort in. There's something to say about that, and you learn a lot along the way, especially from mistakes. And then on top of that, I heard there's lawsuits. It uses other people's art to create. So for that reason, stay away from it.
Jack Briglio is a writer of the Eisner-nominated fantasy adventure series Growing Up Enchanted for Marcosia. He's also the creator of Dominion Jack, a serial in the Joe Shuster-nominated Canadian superhero anthology series True Patriot Presents for Chapter House Publishing. Jack has also worked on Scooby-Doo and Legion of Superheroes in the 31st Century for DC Comics, Sesame Street Comics for Sesame Street Workshop, and Archie's Friend Scarlet for Archie's Comics. His newest work is Thunderboom for Kids Can Press.
The short answer is I think it will be used harmfully. I think there are ways that it could be put to good use by artists, but I'm afraid that non-artists will use it in the wrong way, and that's the feeling I'm getting from what I'm seeing out there. I'm not a fan. Anybody who knows me when I talk about comics is not a one person thing. Unless maybe if you're a cartoonist and you're the writer, artist, and letterer, colorist, the whole thing, that's one thing. But for me, comics is about collaboration. And if you're using AI to tell your story, who are you collaborating with? Right? Who you're collaborating with. It's
right.
Someone give me that answer. So I honestly am not a fan. I think there probably needs to be some sort of measures put in place to hopefully limit its use, because the worries that other artists have brought up about AI are all valid, and honestly, it's not just artists. I also worry on the writing side of things, because they are trying to AI scripts and stories and that sort of thing. So that's also a very dangerous slope. So it needs to be figured out, and I don't know how it can be figured out so that it isn't abused. So. Yeah, lots of concern, and totally valid thing that's up for discussion. And I hope something can be done to rein it in, because, I'd hate to be a publisher right now trying to figure out. Right now, though, honestly, I think it'd be pretty obvious if someone tried to submit something that was AI, that was done through AI, but. I imagine that technology will get better and better, and it's dangerous. It's really unfortunate, because I think there could be uses for creators to use AI in the right way, but I honestly think, unfortunately, there will be people that will use it the wrong way. So yeah, there definitely needs to be.
Bill Slavin is an award-winning illustrator hailing from Belleville, Ontario. He studied cartooning and graphic story illustration at Sheridan College. His illustration work includes Paulette Bourgeois' book, Too Many Chickens, as well as a number of other children's books. With his wife, Esperanza Melo, he was a member of the Millbrook Gallery, a gallery collective of 19 local artists in Millbrook, Ontario. Recently, he returned to his childhood love of comics and graphic novels, writing and illustrating the graphic novel trilogy for kids, Elephants Never Forget, as well as a Mordecai Crow trilogy, Mordecai Crow Secrets of Jero, his first book with Renegade Arts Entertainment.
I heard you ask Scott Chandler this question.
Oh, no. Okay.
And he actually had a really kind of intelligent answer, like he had thought about it. AI, yeah. I guess I don't know how much up to speed I am as to where it's at this point. And when you say comic book creation, I mean there. I guess there's the writing as well as the drawing.
That's true.
Thinking about the writing, well, that just seems kind of pathetic if you sort of would plug in the stuff and it's going to spit you out a plot and then and let AI do that. But yet I've heard other people, writers, poets talk very intelligently about using it as a tool and as a jumping off point and stuff like that. So I guess it there's a few things there. It's how is it going to be used, right? And if it's going to be used as a tool, well, I'm drawing on my iPad now with a stylus. I don't have paper. Everything's gone digital. It's like there's no paper copy of what I create anymore. That's not AI, but it is using those tools to make my artwork better. And if people can use the AI to make their work better, well, God bless them. I think that the idea that's been floated around of labeling things as AI generated, I think is really important. I think people need to know that, I don't think that we want to live in a world where we kind of hand over all the creativity to the machines around us, but and they're going to get good at it. They could get very good at it. They could, they may be as good as we are, and at that point, then that opens up all kinds of philosophical discussions about what is it to be human? Do you grant personhood to these machines that are able to do these wonderful things? They're all valid questions, but for me, creating and creativity is a wondrous gift and place to be in, where I feel more connected, to my world around me than doing virtually anything else. And I think humans will always feel that way, and that will always be part of it. And if people are just happy to kind of hand that all over to the machines and let them do it, and I don't know, are you going to be wowed by something that's being done by a machine? I think there's a point where we'll say no, like it's a machine. Of course it can do it. Maybe it can even do it better than us. But it's not a human that's doing it. I don't know.
Graham Annable is an Oscar-nominated director, cartoonist, and animator living just outside of Ottawa with his wife and 2 boys. Graham's unique voice has been consistently recognized in the mediums of film, games, and graphic novels throughout his career, garnering numerous awards and nominations along the way. When he's not taking his pugs for a walk in the woods, he can usually be found doodling ideas for his latest project in the studio. Graham's latest book is Eerie Tales from the School of Screams from First Second Books.
Well, as an artist, it kind of terrifies me, but I don't know. It's such a hard thing to comment on just yet, because I still feel like it's all getting figured out. And, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I, from what I've seen as far as the results of it, I'm not like super impressed. I think it's still pretty limited in what it can do, and it's pretty easy to spot. It seems like most AI art, depending. There's certain things it does seem to do well, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to turn everyone artistic into just really good prompters. Everyone will get really good at prompting things, writing the right prompts to create the right thing. It's so strange. I don't know. And the big writer's strike and everything that's happening right now, a lot of that is to draw the lines in the sand and create the parameters that need to be there for making AI support the artistic community and not wipe it out. And I don't know. It's such a weird thing.
Andrew Thomas is an award-winning artist and letterer from Mississauga, Ontario, who's worked for Disney, Archie, Chapter House Comics, and more. He's the artist on the award-winning Canadian comic book series Orc of the Great White North. He's illustrated covers and interiors for books such as Captain Canuck Adventures, Roar Man, and Archie's Friend Scarlet. In addition to illustration, Andrew is an accomplished letterer with credits including Captain Canuck, Northgard, Freelance, Die Kitty Die with Chapter House, Disney Princess with Joe Books, and others. Andrew's current work is with Secret Stash Press on various titles.
When it comes to comic books, I don't think that there is a place for AI. I simply don't think, that we can. And a lot of it stems from not only the moral implications, but the ethical implications of how these AI tools are being built, how these models are being built. And by and large, the community is very much against it because I guess it really boils down to the fact that it feels like cheating. It just kind of feels like cutting corners and not in the best way, because from afar the results could look they could look good, but you really go in and you'll see there's a lot of incongruities and there's a lot of AI models. They're not good at sequential storytelling. I've seen especially across my feed a lot of sample AI comics, and it's the colors are pleasing to look at. It's visually pleasing. However, from a storytelling point of view, it's got a long way to go, because a lot of the character models are pretty much recycled from panel to panel. It's like they're in the exact same pose with the exact same facial expression. There are places for AI, in the tech industry when they're performing tasks that are far beyond a single human's capabilities, then sure. But no, I think when it comes to such a subjective field and a very personal field such as anything art related, I think you gotta put in the work. I think you if you really want to do it, I think you study and learn how to do it. And so.
Kagan McLeod is an illustrator and comic book artist known for expressive brush drawing in ink, watercolor, and acrylic gouache. Kagan has had illustrations published in magazines including GQ, Cosmopolitan, Time, People, and Reader's Digest, as well as newspapers, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the Los Angeles Times. In comics, he's known for his book Infinite Kung Fu and Chip Zdarsky's Captera. He's also worked on IDW's Cobra Kai comic. In 2019, Penguin Random House published his instructive drawing book Draw People Every Day. Kagan's work can also be seen in the end credits to the Disney Marvel TV show She-Hulk Attorney at Law that featured his illustrations.
I think, it could be a tool for, creating things easily. Certainly, the work looks really good, but I would avoid it on principle. When I first saw the DALL-E images a couple years ago, I immediately had a sense of dread and a big picture, not for myself, more for humankind. I just think, that will make art become very, very cheap in the future. So it'll be very hard to make money. A lot of people think everyone will be able to make money doing this, which I don't believe that will be true. I think only the best of the best will. And, I just kind of think it is something. What are we going to do? What? We don't want art to just only be a hobby. It's kind of what a lot of people find meaning in. It really does worry me.
I know a lot of artists, when I talk to, they say that there are sometimes happy mistakes that happen when you're doing art. Just casually, oh my gosh, my hand slipped, but let me take advantage of that. Do you think that's something that AI will just remove completely from the equation?
Well, yeah, that's one of the small things. Happy mistakes and process. There is no process with AI. It's just kind of leaping to the finish. So, yeah, I don't know how you can get much of a sense of satisfaction not having struggled with it. I mean, you might struggle with your prompts, I guess. I'm not really sure how it works. You can't have that sense of accomplishment going that route. Yeah, so many people thought that at the beginning that it's just another tool. It's like photography or something like that comes along and shake things up. But I feel like the scale is potentially so much larger, where you can create tens of thousands of images on a click. You can't compete with that output, and our internet feeds will just be clogged with that. I mean, not even to mention deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. You can't compete with that kind of output. So the idea of it just being a new tool to adapt to, I think, is crazy.
Drew Craig is the writer, illustrator, and creator of The Savage Strength of Starstorm. After years of collecting comics and attending conventions with his brother, Drew decided to set about creating his own universe of heroes and villains. From this, Starstorm was born. Drew resides in Montreal with his family and several forest friends, where he attempts to remain warm, write, and draw.
AI, it's a bit of a, I still am processing it. I don't think anything can be good. Artwork should come from people. It shouldn't be made by, there should be some sort of, it shouldn't be so easy. I think it's a little bit of a cheat AI, perhaps. I don't know. It's just that especially if your images and if the AI is taking from other people's work, then that's definitely not a good thing. People who've have a passion for this, and this is their meaning in life, is to create comic books, and if those jobs are lost because AI is just a cheaper, simpler way of creating these things, and some people can take the fast route, I don't know that's the best thing. If it's just used as a tool to help, say I could use AI to clean up my pages, I wouldn't be resistant to that. I guess it depends on each scenario. I don't think it's the best thing, though. I think artwork is meant to be, there's meant to be some effort put into it. It's not, it can't just, I don't know, computers can do too much a little bit, I think, and it's maybe not the best. So okay. I'm not quite a fan, but I mean, I guess it's just like there's a space for it though as well. It's like maybe AI artwork is just like sort of like another artist that's out there, but yeah, I don't know that it's the best.
Kevin Briones is a creative director for an art studio in Toronto. He has over 15 years experience in the design industry, working across Canada, including London, Ontario, plus Whitehorse, Yukon, and other places in between. Kevin is also a graphic artist and illustrator. His previous work includes the Go Man comic book series. With illustrator Paul Lemenko, Kevin continues to publish the Neon Black comic book series.
From what I've seen from the general public and what's been able to come out, it's almost like everything has reached from AI. AI can only emulate what's been fed into it, to where, I feel like just the creator, from their own individual experiences and just human nature to innovate in general, I don't think AI would, at least with the tools that are available now, can actually innovate, if that makes sense. You watch some movies right now, you look at it, you're like, this had to have been written by AI. I feel like with AI, like it can, I've heard of people using AI to generate ideas, or to kind of develop concepts, or at least find inspiration, to where I feel like that's, I feel like when it's used as a tool, I guess, like it could be helpful there. But, as long as you can take that initial thing and actually make it into your own creation. Yeah, like I feel like, when I come across other creators, there's an aspect of everything that they create that I can see as personal to that specific creator, and I just don't feel that with AI.
Based in Toronto, Ontario, Fred Kennedy has a varied career as a radio host, a TV personality, and a comic book writer. He cites one of his most memorable career milestones to date as interviewing Weird Al Yankovic. Fred's previous writing credits include the anthology series True Patriot Presents and The Fourth Planet. His latest project, Dead Romans, is illustrated by Nick Marinkovich, lettered by Andrew Thomas, and edited by Alison O'Toole.
Inevitably, my knee-jerk reaction is going to say it's harmful. It's harmful because it's going to put people out of work, because the thing that I see, this is what I foresee people using it for, is working on pitches. And they'll work on pitches with these AI programs, and then that will impede a lot of younger artists or artists that are inexperienced trying to break in and working with other people that are new. It'll deny them that opportunity. That's one thing that I see happening, and everybody's got their own take. But invariably, I think that it's going to put artists out of work, and it's going to reduce the amount of work for artists, especially things like concept art, etc. You're going to see a lot of these opportunities fade away, and it's frustrating because it's invariably only going to create average, repetitive content. Like, that's all it's going to do. It's not going to innovate. It's not going to change. It's not going to create new things. And there's an argument that you could make to counter that, saying that a lot of stuff that comes out does have the vibe of repetitiveness already anyways. And I think that you are going to see a lot of generic, mediocre product get pushed because it's cheap, and it's going to be sold more cheaply than stuff that's created by actual content creators and artists. And it's frustrating because there's a lot of people that just aren't going to care. And I think that, like, give the consumer a lot of credit, absolutely. The fans are the fans for a reason. But it's the casual fans that I think are not going to be informed about what it is they're doing, and then they're just going to get it. It's sort of like when you've got two products on the shelf, okay? You've got two toothbrushes on the shelf, and you've got one toothbrush that is like the best toothbrush ever, and it costs $8. And then you've got the next toothbrush, which is only going to last you like 6 months, but it's only $1 and it's not very good, etc. That person's going to, like, most people are going to take that $1 toothbrush and are not going to appreciate the comforting bristles of the $8 toothbrush, you know? That's not to say nobody's going to buy the $8 toothbrush. They will. But the $1 toothbrush is going to be very appealing to people who don't understand the jobs that they're taking by buying it, you know? Right. And I think that's frustrating. And I think that also music is a great analogy, and I've used this before. If you're taking samples of music and putting it in a new single, you got to pay for it. Right. Like, that's licensed work. Yep. Yet all these artists are having their work stolen and used to create new things, and they're not getting a sample fee, and they should. It's theft. Period. End of story. It is.
Cecil Castellucci is the award-winning and New York Times best-selling author of books and graphic novels for young adults, including Shade the Changing Girl, Boyproof, The Plain Janes, Soupy Leaves Home, The Year of the Beasts, Tin Star, Female Furies, and Odd Duck. In 2015, she co-authored Star Wars Moving Target, A Princess Leia Adventure. She has also written for Batgirl for DC Comics. Her short stories and short comics have been published in Strange Horizons, Tor.com, and many other anthologies. In a former life, she was known as Cecil Seaskull in the 90s indie band Nerdy Girl. She's written 3 opera librettos, Les Aventures de Madame Merveille, world premiere in 2010, Hockey Noir the Opera, world premiere in 2018, and Metternich, Princess Pauline von Metternich, world premiere in 2021. She's a former children's correspondence coordinator for The Rumpus, a 2-time McDowell Fellow, and was a founding YA editor at the LA Review of Books. Recently, her graphic novel Shifting Earth was published by Berger Books. Her most current effort is Star Wars Hyperspace Stories No. 6.
AI is here, right? So, so I think one of the things that we're talking about when people are on the line is how do we come up with rules and parameters for it now and fair recompense for it being trained on our work moving forward? I think right now, what it seems like, from what I understand, a lot of AI creative stuff, especially writing, has to be checked by humans, right? So it's not doing what they say it's actually doing, which is a bad thing because there's I think there are a lot of business executives who are just looking at how they can like cut corners rather than like actually looking at the technology as something else. Maybe it will become some kind of a tool down in the future, but the fact is that right now it's a threat to any creative industry. If you've put your picture as a fun thing through Midjourney, and done like, oh, me as an elf, me as a this, me in this style, me in this style, you're basically stealing people's artwork because it's been trained on those other people's pieces of art. So that's stop doing it. It's not good. I'm doing a new project right now that I'm very loosely working on. I actually got a Canada Council grant for it. Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting. My first one, my first literary one. It's about a World War I soldier from England. And I found his portrait, and I've been commissioning comic book artists to draw his portrait in their style. And I'm doing that with humans, I'm not paying, I don't have that much money. It's it's Canadian dollars. So it's, some of these artists are in Europe, so it's not that much money, or the United States to them. But the fact is that there's nothing like having a human interpret the face of a dead soldier. And there's just a haunting beauty to it that AI just can't replicate. And I think it's important to remember that we have to pay artists. And it really comes down to the same exact thing, AI is here. It could be a good tool for some people down the line if there are ways that people could get paid if their stuff is used or if it's trained on that. But I think when business people look at AI as a tool to eliminate the human factor in everything and a way to cut corners and a way to make more profit, then we're in real danger for, I think, the state of humanity. I don't mean to be dramatic, but I think every single problem that we're having right now is all about corporations trying to cut corners in order to make the maximum amount of money possible, the maximum amount of profit, and to not pay people. It's becoming too dispersed, the people who are extremely rich and then everybody else, and it's just not good.
Kevin Woolridge is a cartoonist from Gould's, Newfoundland and Labrador. His works include the comic strip The Little World that was featured in Current magazine, alongside his editorial cartoon The Opposition. He recently launched his own publishing company, Heavy Sweater Comics. Kevin loves Godzilla movies, collects vintage toys. He's a hater of wet socks. His most recent book is Andy and the Magic Box.
Oh dear. Well, my own submission call, I clearly state that I ask for no AI submissions. It's kind of scary. I mean, it's early days, but I know that there are people out there who, I assume they're people, they could be bots that are posting fully AI books like on Amazon and that kind of thing, And that's really scary because it is, at least my understanding of how it all works, that it is grabbing assets from the internet and from other people's work and collating that into something new. I don't know. I mean, as a kind of tool that you're using yourself in your home to kind of like shake some cobwebs, maybe, but there really needs to be some sort of regulations around it. It kind of reminds me in the same way when sampling became a thing, in the music industry. And, there are strict rules and procedures around sampling. And AI is kind of related to that in a way, but I don't feel that government has stepped up with any kind of legislation yet or to kind of regulate how that works in the creative industries.
Seth is a cartoonist, designer, and collector residing in Guelph, Ontario. His books include Wimbledon Green, George Sprott, and Clyde Fans. He's a subject of the award-winning National Film Board documentary Seth's Dominion, and was a winner in 2011 of the prestigious Harbourfront Prize. After 20 years of serialization, Clyde Fans was published in 2019 and went on to be the first graphic novel ever nominated for the Giller Prize. In 2021, his bronze sculpture arrangement Living Room Suite was installed in front of the Art Gallery of Guelph. In 2022, Seth was honored by the French government as a Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres. His latest book is called Palookaville 24, published by Drawn and Quarterly.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. It's like if you talked to me when I was younger, I would just have a very clear screed against any kind of technological tools. Back in the 90s, I was such a strong Luddite, trying to avoid the computer and the internet at all costs. And like most people, I've been slowly dragged into the modern world. Or actually, not like most people leaped in. But I have been dragged in. I don't have a cell phone or anything, and I certainly don't draw on the computer. But I'm talking to you through a computer right now. I use a computer every day. I probably have the computers right here on my desk because I'm using Google Image all the time. It's an incredibly useful tool for drawing. But I don't draw on the computer. I don't use it for anything. And when you get down to AI, well, this is a funny thing. I didn't even know anything about this AI image creation until about maybe 8 months ago. I had a friend I was working with, and at the end of his emails, he would often include images. In one of the emails, there were these really great looking, what looked to me like vintage paperback covers from maybe the Soviet Union or behind the Iron Curtain from the 50s. So I said, what are these? And he was like, oh, these are just computer generated images that I've been playing around with where I ask, the AI program to make me this or make me that. And I was amazed. I was like, the computer assembled these images because they were beautiful and perfectly done. They even had like the print quality of poor newsprint. And this really amazed me because they were great. And I've since seen other computer generated art that I've said, that's really great. So it can be done. Do I think it's a good tool for artists? I don't know. I mean, would I do a comic where I could ask the computer to make the images for me? Maybe. Doesn't blow my mind. I mean, everything changes so dramatically that it's hard to get a handle on what's good or bad. If you talk to an artist in like 1880 who was working with a woodcut artist to take his drawings so they could be reproduced, and talk to him about the new world that was coming of photogravure, where they could just photograph his pencils, that would be an enormous shift in how the work is done. We might be going through that process right now. Right now, this kind of drawing things onto paper, scanning them in, this might be like, the equivalent of a woodcut to artists in 40 years. It probably already is the equivalent to a woodcut to artists who are already working directly digitally. They aren't wasting their time drawing things on paper and erasing and whiting out. So it seems inevitable that my opinion as a 60-year-old guy who has avoided all computer technology when it comes to my practice, that my opinion is going to look antiquated when the time comes. For myself, well, obviously, I don't think I want to read comic books that are put together by computers, but maybe I'm wrong. Again, like those paperback covers, maybe seeing is believing.
Thanks to all the creators for their feedback and participation. You can discover the full interviews with each creator on TrueNorthCountryComics.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and check out all the creators who have done the interviews over the years. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. You can follow along at True North Country Comics on most social media sites. And remember, you can always send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. If you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage, as always, is greatly appreciated. Thanks to you for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast, copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.